Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. John Owen talks about sports and movies. Thank you for checking out today's video. Always appreciate the support. Let's get into it. So there are certain movies that, at least in my opinion, get a lot of hate or are really disliked, or not really disliked, but are kind of disliked, that I feel like I don't really know. I feel like they don't deserve it, and I really like those movies. So today I'm just going to go over some movies that I like slash love. They get way too much hate, in my oh so humble opinion, of course, and I'm just going to break down why I like these movies, where I see the criticism, but why I feel like maybe in spots it's overblown. Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do you agree that these movies get too much hate? Do you like these movies? Are there some other movies you think fall into this category as well? Let's get into it. But first, a major spoiler warning. I'm going to be going into detail. None of these movies are new or anything like that, but it is just a fair warning just to tell you that there will be spoilers for the movie, for all these movies. And also, with each movie that we go, I'll like the movie better. So, for example, the second movie that I like about, or that I talk about today, I like more than the first, the third more than the second. But with all that out of the way, let's talk about our first movie. The first movie we're going to talk about today is a movie that I talked about on my channel before, and that's Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Now, I am talking about the Ultimate Edition. The theatrical cut is not very good, and I get all the criticism for that movie. But I still feel like there's a lot of division with this movie. I just saw a YouTube video the other day called Batman v Superman. Is it the worst superhero movie ever? I thought that was quite an atrocious claim when you consider there are movies such as Batman and Robin and the theatrical releases of Justice League and Suicide Squad. But I totally get where the criticism for this movie is coming from. I'm not going to talk about this movie in depth as much as the other ones because I've got a video about this movie that I will link right here in the card and in the description. And it's a heavily discussed movie, so I really don't have much input. But basically, in essence, the third act is really where I find all the criticism for this movie. It's just messy, and the Batman versus Superman fight is just not super great. Doesn't live up to my expectations and everything like that. Doomsday and Wonder Woman and the Martha scene. It's just really clunky and messy. But I really love the first 2/3 of this movie. All of Clark's reporting and just the build up to that massive showdown is wonderful. This is the third act where the movie falls apart for me. All right, next, a movie that I really feel like is also decisive is Man of Steel. Me, personally, I really, really, really enjoy Man of Steel. I think it's a solid origin story. I think it's got solid in all the movie aspects. I could see where you don't like Jonathan Kent in his portrayal, the way he's very cynical and doesn't want Clark to show his powers. And I get that's not comic accurate or maybe the best adaptation we've seen, but at the same time, you have to look at it the lens through kind of what this world is. It's a kind of a darker, more cynical world that the two Zack Snyder films are set in. And maybe that doesn't work for Superman as well as maybe another character, but for me personally, it doesn't bother me. But I love him trying to find out who he is, with scenes like the oil rig and the ship, him trying to help people, but keep it a secret at the same time, and just finding out who Clark Kent wants to be as opposed to what Zor-El or Jonathan Kent want him to be. I really think that's a very powerful, solid story. I think that Henry Cavill played him great in this movie. He's great as Superman, period. And I want him to come back for more projects just outside of Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think the first flight sequence is one of the best scenes in superhero movies history. And I think General Zod is a very solid, good villain. And I believe that Man of Steel is a great start to the DCEU. And it looked really great from here. Obviously, they've had their road bumps, but I think they're going to get it back together. But I think this was a great jumping off point. Next, we got Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. This movie, to me, personifies all of the prequels' faults. It really does. The dialogue is just kind of cheeky. and messy. I mean, come on, it's prequel dialogue. It's memeable. It's laughable. It's not very well written. And you throw on top of that, there are some story points that are kind of messy and confusing. Uh, Palpatine as Dooku to ask Jango, who asked another assassin who used worms, all just to kill Padme. That seems like a very long, confusing train of events, and the mystery of it. They just kind of name drop Sifo Dyas, and they just don't address who that is until unless you watch the Clone Wars, everything like that. But this movie has some great aspects, and then obviously Anakin and Padme's dialogue on Naboo is atrocious. But if you kind of look at the story elements during that, I believe that that part of the movie becomes at least watchable. Maybe not enjoyable, but at least passable. Everything else, I absolutely love about this movie. To me, this is really just kind of a comfort movie. You can just turn it on a Sunday when it's rainy, kind of just need something in the background. I really feel like this movie is that kind of movie. I love Kamino. Outside of Mustafar, my favorite planet in all Star Wars, I love everything on Kamino. Jango and Obi-Wan's little clash is super fun. Jango Fett's great. Everything on Geonosis I absolutely love. The clones coming in and all the Jedi. Padme gets to have some good action beats. Dooku versus Anakin and Obi-Wan was a nice little precursor to the Yoda and Dooku fight. I absolutely love Yoda. See him flip around and catch the lightning and throw it back and everything like that. And I felt like it was a great setup for Revenge of the Sith. Some people may not agree with that, but I feel like it was, and I really enjoy Attack of the Clones. Next is a movie that I find myself defending a lot, just because it is part of the sequels, but Star Wars The Force Awakens. Okay, now the number one criticism that I have of this movie, and that a lot of people have of this movie, is that it really is a New Hope rehash. I mean, it really is. Almost story point for story point, a rehash of the first Star Wars movie. But I will say that this movie does capture the essence of what a Star Wars film should feel like to a T, and it was a great way to start a trilogy. A criticism of this movie that I do not accept. I understand people are entitled to their own opinion, but I do not accept this criticism of this movie. The Force Awakens is not as good because The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker did not fulfill on the stuff set up in The Force Awakens. That's not that movie's fault. Say it with me again, guys. It is not The Force Awakens' fault that episodes 8 and 9 are not as good and are very messy and clunky. It's not this movie's fault. How can this movie be affected by two other separate movies' qualities? That's like saying the first Jurassic Park movie is not as good because The Lost World or its sequel is not as good as the original, which I understand. The Force Awakens and Jurassic Park are kind of separate. Jurassic Park's a complete story. The Force Awakens is supposed to start the trilogy, but that's not The Force Awakens' fault that the other two movies were not as good and were messy. That's not its fault. So do not bring that in here. I do not accept that criticism. As far as things I absolutely love about this movie is so fun. When I first saw it in theaters, I just thought it was a fun movie, and it really is. The character interactions with Rey and Finn, that's probably my favorite part of the whole movie. Finn and Poe, Rey and Finn and Han, Maz and everything like that is super fun. I think Kylo Ren is great in this movie. I think he's great throughout the entire sequel trilogy, but I really think he's awesome in this movie. He just looks intimidating. His cross-guard lightsaber is awesome. Watching him freeze the blaster shot midair was awesome. And then maybe my favorite scene in the entire sequel trilogy, or maybe not my favorite, but one of, if not the best scene in the whole sequel trilogy, is Kylo Ren and Han's interaction on Starkiller Base, and Kylo Ren kills Han. It's very emotional. It's very well done, and I believe that this movie is one of the better Star Wars movies, period. All right, but coming in, and the last movie I'm going to talk about today is Spider-Man Far From Home. I understand that this movie is not concisely written. The Edith plotline has a lot of holes and a lot of flaws that really just don't make sense. They really do. It's just kind of, why would Tony have the Edith in the first place? Why would Tony give it to Peter? It just, there are a lot of questions and a lot of holes. However, I believe that the pure emotional moments and the way this movie makes me feel and the action overcome that flaw. Because at the end of the day, the movie's not about Edith. The movie's about Peter learning that he doesn't need to be Iron Man to be a great hero, and him accepting the responsibility of being an Avenger full time after it's bestowed to him. Because in Homecoming, he wants to be an Avenger, but he's not an Avenger yet, so he can't quite grasp it. And in Infinity War and Endgame, he is a full-time Avenger. There's really no time for him to stop and kind of process. And in this movie, he's processing the full emotional weight of being an Avenger. And he learns to accept that responsibility and learns how to cope with that and the struggles that come with it. I believe Mysterio is a fantastic villain. He is super menacing and just evil, but he's got a cool backstory, and his suit is awesome. You want to talk about comic accuracy? There you go, comic accuracy, people, right there. And he's just really cool and different, and he's also meta commentary kind of about how movies are made and how everything's so unbelievable and everything like that. And then the action in this movie is fantastic. From the time Mysterio's big illusion starts, with like the snow globe and dropping MJ off the Eiffel Tower and the tombstone, like that illusion sequence, all the way to the end of the movie, the final battle in London. That's great, intense Spider-Man action, and the best action in a Spider-Man movie, in my opinion, by far and away. Set pieces, choreography, you really get to see the full scale of Peter Parker's powers and Spider-Man's powers in general, all within this, and I think it's fantastic. Yes, I understand that the Edith plotline is not great, but everything outside of that is absolutely wonderful and fantastic, and I just don't get why people hate on this movie and just kind of MCU Spider-Man in general. But that's just my opinion on all these movies. If you don't like one of these movies, tell me why. And if you like one of these movies, tell me that you like it too. But make sure you comment any movies that you feel like I left out, or if you disagree with any of my picks, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and turn on your notification bells so you never miss out on any of the fun. Check out the link content. You have a great day.